Next, the Pope's created a special department in the Vatican to hear allegations made against Catholic bishops who failed to deal with cases of sexual abuse. Now, it's an unprecedented move, and the Tribunal will have the power to punish bishops who fail to protect young victims. Our correspondent in Rome is James Reynolds.
A year ago, the Pope prayed with and apologised to victims of abuse within the Church, and he also created a commission of 17 members which would look into ways of fighting sex abuse. And this commission itself includes the victims of sex abuse. And their major recommendation appears to be this: make it much tougher for the bishops, that is, the senior clerics, to hide or shuffle around priests who commit abuse. The Pope's agreed to create this new Vatican department. It'll be formally known as a judicial tribunal, and it will hear allegations against bishops who cover up for priests who commit abuse. And the tribunal will have the power to punish bishops who don't do enough.
Well, the news has been widely welcome, but does it go far enough? Let's speak to Lucy Duckworth, who's chair of the group Minister and Clergy Sexual Abuse Survivors, and Jack Valeres from Catholic Voices, an organisation set up to promote the Catholic Church's viewpoint. Hi to both of you.
Hello.
Jack, let me start with you. What's your response to this announcement?
This is really good. I mean, the suggestion came from the Commission for the Protection of Minors, which includes these two victims. And Mary Collins, who is a victim of abuse herself in Ireland, said she was very pleased that this first suggestion they'd made to the Pope, he had taken it up and done it. You know, we've had in the Catholic Church procedures and guidelines to root out abusive priests. We've had those for 12, 15 years, but we've not had any rules against abuse of office. This is what they're calling it. Bishops who don't do their job in this area. And this is what they requested. The victims themselves said, this is what we need. The Pope has looked at it and said, yes, let's go for it. So in that sense, it's really good.
OK, Lucy, in part this has come from victims themselves. What's your response?
Well, I mean, we welcome any steps forward in dealing with the epidemic that is present in the Catholic Church. What we want to know, though, is who it's going to be accountable to. What does punish mean? Why are the files not being handed straight over to the police? Why is it not independent? I mean, it raises a lot more questions than it solves.
Well, that's a good point, Jack, isn't it? I mean, why are the Vatican investigating this themselves? Well, actually, if we look at their past record of investigating sexual abuse themselves, it's not great, to put it mildly.
Right. Of course, the guidelines say that any abuse takes place, that goes straight to the police. That's the first thing. That's been going on for over a decade, and everybody involved is reported to the police. So that's already going on. What this does, this is an extra thing, which is that if a bishop is seen to abuse his office in the Catholic Church, he is fired from his job. Which wasn't happening before. I mean, he was sent to the police, and the police would try him, and if he was found guilty, of course, he would face the law. But within the Church, this is an extra thing, you know, that's additional to the police. This is not instead of the police. That's all going on at the same time.
But only last year, the UN very strongly criticised the Church for allowing cover-ups. This was just last year.
Yes, well, that was a very problematic report in that it didn't take account of what had been going on for a decade of reform. And yes, of course, things were bad, as we have been saying, not only in the Church, but in many institutions. And there has been a slow recovery from this, and things are in place. And yes, of course, this is work in progress. We're not saying this is the end of it. We've done it. We're all whiter than white now. No, this is work in progress. We keep learning, like all these other things. You know, the schools, the local authorities, the MPs. We're all learning how this happened and what we're going to do to never let it happen again.
Yeah, I mean, Lucy made the good point that it's not actually been, you know, particularly stipulated what will happen if bishops are found to have assisted in covering up and moving priests who were subsequently convicted of abuse. That's not there, is it?
What will happen is that they will be got rid of. That's what will happen.
We don't know that, though, Jack. We don't know that. We haven't been told that they're going to get rid of. I mean, we don't know what the chain of command is going to be. We don't. There's no way that it says that he's fired from his job, and it does worry me that you're using.
I see. Right. Okay.
Sorry, can I just finish? We're far from recovered from this at all. I mean, the Church still haven't handed over their files. And you're saying that everybody involved is reported to the police. We have absolutely no evidence of that whatsoever.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
No, it's recommendations. It's not mandatory at all. So until we have that in place, we're still...
No, that's not right.
And Lucy, your organisation, there's no dialogue. The Vatican won't dialogue with you.
No, they won't. And, only 2 weeks ago, I was speaking to a bishop who said that safeguarding had been dealt with, and we are. I've tried many times to contact the Danny Sullivan, the head of safeguarding Catholic Church, and he says that he does want to communicate with us, but it's a very slow process. So if we're talking about recovery, I think that's the wrong word to be using. We speak to hundreds of survivors from the Catholic Church who have had a failed response, who talk of cover-ups, who are not given the support they need, who are not offered independent advice, and that is what we are asking for. We are not saying that this is bad at all. We're not saying that everything's done is critical at all. But what we are saying is that we need an independent voice to oversee abuse within institutions such as the Catholic Church.
Jack.
Yes. The all abuse is reported to the police as a matter of course.
How do you know that, though?
How do you monitor that?
Because that's in the procedures. That's absolutely in the procedures. All abuse is always reported to the police.
But people are always going to break the procedures.
Sorry?
We're not. People are always going to break the procedures.
This is the thing, that if you break the procedures and you're found out, of course, that's very serious. But in principle, there's a procedure that all abuse is immediately reported to the police and dealt with. And this has been in place for 12 years. And
it's also a procedure, though, that you don't abuse children in the first place. And we
of course. We're all trying to do that. We're finding that there has been abuse in the BBC, there has been abuse in schools, there has been abuse everywhere. Absolutely. We're all finding out how to deal with this. And in the church, we have had this very, very strong zero tolerance procedures for now. Now what we're dealing with is what we have to improve a lot is how we deal with abuse from back then, because the victims are still suffering. And this is what we're trying to learn now with this commission, which includes victims, is, okay, the abuse was then, the pain is now. How do we deal with this? And this is why Peter Saunders is there, that's why Mary Collins is there, to advise the Catholic Church in how do you deal with victims that suffered and are still suffering. That's what we need to improve.
Is that why Pal has not been sent back to answer the questions that he needs to answer about his cover-ups?
Say that again?
Is that why Pell has not been sent back to Australia?
Pell has already reported on all the accusations that have been made about him.
Okay.
In two cases already, in two trials already, he's answered all those things.
Okay, we need to leave it there.
Okay.
Thank you both very much indeed, though, Jack Valero, and to Lucy Duckworth as well. Your response, very welcome, please. 85058 is where you can get in touch.